You know, when you think of chess, you probably picture this epic battle of pure intellect, right? Two minds locked in a fight of strategy, calculation, and just cold, hard logic. But what if I told you that the most dangerous opponent you'll ever face isn't sitting across the board? What if that opponent is actually inside your own head?
For decades, this has been the ideal we've all been sold. Books like Irving Chernev's Logical Chess, a classic, taught generations of players that every single move has a clear, logical reason. It really paints this picture of chess as a game played by, I don't know, unflappable calculating machines.
And yeah, this quote, it just nails that idea. The chess master as this perfect architect of victory, someone who's in total control, building a fortress of logic so flawless that the win just happens. It's a really beautiful and powerful myth.
So let's start right there, with that very myth, the idea of the master's flawless fortress, built on a foundation of pure, cold logic.
But that leads to this really fascinating puzzle. I mean, if chess is all about perfect logic, why do we see world champions, the absolute best players on the planet, make blunders that are just shocking, totally inexplicable? What's causing those cracks in the fortress?
Well, the answer introduces an opponent that's completely invisible, and it's an opponent that every single player faces, whether you're a total beginner or a world-class grandmaster. That opponent is your own mind.
We are talking about something called cognitive biases. Basically, these are mental shortcuts our brains take all the time. And while they can be useful, in a high-stakes game like chess, they can seriously cloud our judgment. They are the mind's hidden traps, and they can lead even the most brilliant players to make some truly devastating errors.
So this isn't just theory. Let's see how this actually plays out on the battlefield. We're going to dive into some of the most famous games in chess history, where these exact mental traps ended up deciding world championships.
All right. Our first case is a textbook example of what's called confirmation bias. That's our tendency to look for and favor information that just confirms what we already believe. And this one happened on the biggest stage imaginable, the 2014 World Championship match, with Viswanathan Anand facing Magnus Carlsen.
Okay, so Anand, playing with the black pieces, had a really promising position. He'd come up with a plan, and he was absolutely convinced it was the right one. This conviction led him to play the move 26a4, basically doubling down on his own idea. But that bias totally blinded him to a brilliant tactical reply from Carlsen, who just immediately turned the tables. That one single move driven by bias cost Anand the entire game and was a massive blow to his title defense.
So the lesson here is absolutely crucial. Your brain wants to stick to the plan. It loves consistency. You have to consciously fight against that. You have to constantly ask yourself, wait, is my assessment still correct? Because what looked good a few moves ago might be a disaster now.
Next up, this one's a big one. Maybe the most famous upset in modern chess history, and it was all driven by overconfidence bias. We've got the legendary Garry Kasparov, who many consider the greatest player of all time, facing his challenger, Vladimir Kramnik, back in 2000.
I mean, Kasparov was the undisputed king of chess, a true force of nature, and he was so confident, so sure of his own genius, that he completely underestimated Kramnik's strategy. Kramnik had prepared this incredibly solid defense, the famous Berlin Wall, and Kasparov just kept walking right into it, game after game, convinced he could smash through it with pure talent. But he couldn't. Kramnik neutralized every single attack and did the unthinkable. He dethroned Kasparov without losing a single game.
And what a lesson, right? It doesn't matter how good you are. Overconfidence can make you predictable, and it can completely blind you to what your opponent is bringing to the table. You have to respect their preparation. All right, for our final case study, let's talk about a bias that gets all of us, inside and outside of chess. It's called loss aversion. It's that feeling where we'd much rather avoid losing something than we would enjoy gaining something of equal value. It makes us way too cautious. Let's see it in action in the super tense 1978 World Championship between Viktor Korchnoi and Anatoly Karpov.
So Korchnoi gets to this critical moment in the game. He has a chance to sacrifice one of his pieces. Now, this would be a short-term loss. He'd be down material, but it would unleash a devastating, probably winning attack. But that fear of losing the piece, that little voice in his head saying, don't lose anything, it was just too strong. He hesitated. He played a safe, passive move instead, and the winning chance was gone, just like that. That fear of a small loss ultimately contributed to a massive one, losing the world title.
The takeaway here is so powerful. That fear of taking one small step back can be the very thing that prevents you from taking a giant leap forward.
Sometimes a calculated risk isn't just an option, it's the only path to victory.
Okay, so we've seen how these mental traps can trip up even the absolute greatest. So the big question is, what do we do about it? How can we actually fight back against our own brains?
You can really think of it as this constant battle going on in your head. On one side, you've got logical play. It's objective, it's flexible, it's always looking for the best move. But on the other side, you've got biased play. It gets stuck on the first idea, it loves the plan you already have, and man, it is terrified of losing anything. Just recognizing which side is winning that battle in any given moment is a huge first step.
So here are 4 practical things you can actually do. First, force yourself to look at your moves from a completely different angle. Play devil's advocate with yourself. Second, when you can, use objective tools. In chess, that's a computer engine, but in life, that could be getting a second opinion from a trusted friend. Third, and this is so important, just be mindful that these traps exist. Knowing about them is half the battle. And fourth, practice your critical thinking by studying these kinds of games and see exactly where others went wrong.
Now, here's what makes all of this so fascinating to me. These aren't just lessons for chess players, they're lessons for life. So let's zoom out a little and see how this applies way beyond those 64 squares.
Think about it. Confirmation bias? That's when you only look for news that supports that stock you just bought. Overconfidence? That's underestimating a competitor in a business deal. And loss aversion? That's what keeps someone in a dead-end job because they're afraid of the uncertainty of looking for a new one. The game board might look different, but the hidden traps are exactly the same.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. The next time you have a big decision to make, at work, with your money, in your personal life, which of these hidden opponents are you going to be on the lookout for? Because knowing they're there, well, that's the first step